Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today is our first session on the Sahaba Project. Now, this is something that I have been thinking about for a very long time. Something I really wanted to do, something that's quite close to my heart. And one of the things that I have really thought about before we started this project was the fact that it needs to be something that hasn't been done before, something that can help us connect with the Sahabas. And we know about their names and everything, but do we really know them? And that is one of the major things that we're going to explore in the Sahaba Project. And we want to look at how they thought and the way we're going to structure this whole series, taking it from the early Muslims onwards as they became Muslims throughout the years up to the point before the Hijrah to Medina. We'll look at it from a collective point of what Makkah as a society was like, what was happening over there, and what these individuals contributed to it. What were their families like? What kind of social pressures did they face? Now, one of the major things that we sort of don't understand, or we sort of don't look in depth in, is the fact that these people chose to be Muslims. We are Muslims by birth, but these were individuals that were born into a society that grew up in a society that were facing a lot of bad things that were happening over there. And they chose to let go of those elements, those norms in society that existed in Makkah back in the day. They chose that, we don't want to be associated with these things. They changed a complete way of life. And I think that is one of the major things that we need to understand, that what does a person goes through mentally, emotionally, to make that choice. And being the first ones that did that, what were the pressures that they faces from their families? I mean, just imagine for a second right now, if you chose a different religion. You're not going to, obviously, but just imagine for a second that you did. What kind of social, boycott are you going to face? What kind of social pressure are you going to face in today's time? And this existed for them because that was the truth for the society at that time in Makkah. But a new religion came, a truthful religion came, and they wanted to go onto that. And I feel that focusing on the Makkan period is because anyone that became Muslim at that particular time did it not for any worldly gain. There was nothing to gain and everything to lose. And I think we always start looking at the Sahaba from the point where they became a Muslim and what they did for Islam, but we never realize who they were as individuals. They were normal human beings like me and you that walked this earth back in the day, and they set the foundation of what Islam and what is today. And what sacrifice they personally did is very important for us to understand. And one of the primary questions that brought the Sahaba Project into existence was, I came across I think it was a Facebook video or a Facebook or social media post, and it asked a really important question, that imagine if you die right now. We never know when we're going to pass away. Might be going to work, go to sleep, and you don't wake up. And we know so many stories of people that have passed away that are not here today, that were here yesterday, from our own families. And imagine if you're one of them. And inshallah, we'll go to Jannah. Inshallah, we all pray whenever we hear any of the ayahs from the Quran for paradise. We think this is for us, and the hellfire is for someone else. So inshallah, we'll be in Jannah. And if you go to Jannah, imagine you're there right now, and you meet Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anha, or Khadija radiallahu anha, or the Prophet, or his children, or Abu Bakr Siddiq, or Umar bin al-Khattab, or Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. What are we going to talk to them about? What are we going to ask them? What questions do we have to communicate, to hold a real conversation with them? Because these guys were friends back in the day. They were together. They would have so much to talk about. And we go there, we would know anyone over there. If your house is next to one of the Sahabas, how are you going to hold a conversation with them? And that really, shook me. And I thought that, this is something that I really need to work on personally. And this is where the journey started from, because I want to hold a real conversation with the Prophet. I want to hold a real conversation with Khadija radiallahu anha. I want to hold a real conversation with Hazrat Umar. I want to speak to Umar radiallahu anha and ask him, questions. Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anha. I want to speak with him. I want to ask him how he did business, what struggles did he face, what kind of life he lived. And this is where the Sahaba Project really, stems from, is holding real conversations with Sahabas. And this is in a khutbah, and inshallah I'll cover this later on, is, it's understanding who these individuals were and how we can relate to them. Now, basically, we're going to look at three major things. The first thing, we're going to look at it from a historical perspective, their biography, their social context that they lived in Makkah. The second thing is going to be human-centered. We're going to be focusing on the characters, the choices, and the consequences each of the Sahabas had. The third thing, which I feel is very important for everyone, is the fact that this is being designed for deep thinking and is not just passive listening. So obviously right now you don't have anything to write on because this is an introductory session that we're doing, but hopefully once we start with Khadija radiallahu anha, the first one, I would want you guys to write the questions as they come, because many of the things are not answered. We don't find them in the seerah. A lot of things are, indirectly hinted towards, but we don't have conclusive evidence for it. And these are things I feel that, are open to interpretation to some degree, but it's something on a personal level that I feel that, we would want to ask them when we meet them. So definitely anyone that's watching at home as well, I would suggest for you guys to have a pen and paper with you. And as we go about the session, I want you to put your questions down, and we will have a live session as well once the Sahabas when that particular Sahaba is completed. And we will have a one-to-one session. We'll communicate and we'll share. This is a collective learning journey that we're on. This is not a one-way street. So basically, there's a lot of things that you should be doing on your own and thinking about and, reading about. And collectively, I feel we might be able to get to know them better. And hopefully, inshallah, when we go to Jannah, collectively, we can have a sit down and we can have a session with one of the Sahabas and ask them our questions. And hopefully, it would be nice for them that when we do meet them and we have a discussion with them, they feel that the sacrifices that they made for us to be where we are today was not forgotten, and they were talked about, they were remembered, and there was research that was done on these particular Sahabas. Now, I've done a deliberate focus, which is focusing just on the Makkan period, because this series that we're going to do continuously is going to be focusing on people who accepted Islam from the very beginning until the Hijrah of Medina, like I said before. And because it's sort of this period of the Makkan period, it captures when Islam was, I would say, the weakest, and it was in the initial stages, and every force was being used to destroy it, to finish it off. And obviously, I'm going to highlight in great detail how the Makkan society, the leadership at that time, was doing that. And it's going to reveal the choices that these individuals made that had no social advantage whatsoever. It had no benefit for them. The only thing they were doing was surrendering everything they had, either it be their wealth, either it be their social standing, either it be their families. Everything was given up for Islam. And I think that is one of the most important things for us to capture, that how are they able to do that and still sustain themselves. And it shows us that from that as pressures intensified on these individuals, they still continue to be on the path to what led to Islam for to be today. And it takes time. And when I was starting this research, I found out that there were some Sahabas that would take a long time to cover. And what we're going to focus on is that we're going to focus on one Sahaba 1 week. So the whole Sahaba, we're going to try to cover their life, their choices, what they did, how they became Muslims, what consequences they faced for it. And this is going to be, our focus is very, you could say, to create a deeper connection with them. And I'm not going to rush over it. And that is one of the major things I feel that we need to understand, that this is something that that should be given time. We should do, I'm sure we can't do justice to it. To what degree we can do justice to it, we should do. So if I feel that a particular story, a particular character requires time for explanation, we will give it time. And no matter how long it takes, we'll take our time, our sweet time with it in order to completely understand. And obviously, feedback is very important. So if there's something I have missed, we can always include it in the next session. We can have an offline discussion on it as well. And anyone that's watching online, they can comment and add their 2 cents to the conversation. And it's a journey that we're on together. And it's going to be a very slow learning. I want at the end of each session that we have on a Sahaba that we take from them something. That when we meet them, we can say that I know about you, and this is a character that I liked in your personality that I applied to myself. This is something that you liked, which I learned and I have applied. So we would have a connection. Just imagine for a second that if someone comes up to you on a street and says to you that I know everything about you and you're such an amazing person. You know, I know what you like to eat. I know how you think. And, you know, I know all your stories. You would automatically feel connected to that person. You'll feel in awe of that person, that this person really loves me. But you'll say, I don't know anything about you. I want to know about you. What happened to Islam? How did you sort of, what was your struggles as a Muslim after we go long on? How did the world change for you? And imagine if they took an interest in you. Even in today's time, if someone comes up and takes an interest in us, we are happy. And imagine when you're in Jannah and you're telling them of everything you know about them and how happy they would be and how connected they would feel with you. And that is something I feel requires time. So I've broken every session basically into something I call the 5-part journey. And the first one is focusing on who they were as a tribe, their family status, their social role, and their personality. And obviously, one of the things I read about, and I want to clarify this, when Islam came, it didn't erase their personalities. And I feel this is something that especially non-Muslims or converts, they would understand more than anyone. That when you become Muslim, it doesn't change your personality. It doesn't erase your personality. It enhances it. So when Umar bin al-Khattab became Muslim, it didn't erase his personality. How he was before Islam, it changed his perspective. So his strengths, in character, in leadership, were used for Islam. So basically, we have a level of personality, we have intellectual or qualities that Allah has given us. But we need to understand where are they being used. If Khalid bin al-Walid radiallahu anha was an amazing journal before Islam, but once he became Muslim, his qualities, his abilities were used for Islam. So it didn't erase the personality. This is something that we will focus on. The second thing is the environment. Now, we know for a fact that as individuals, that our environment has a huge impact on who we are today. Our social values, our norms in society, how things are done. It impacts our decision making. And I think it's very important for you to understand what Makkah and Makkan society was actually like back in the day. And this discussion, I want to do it from a historical perspective. Now, one of the main things that I want to clarify to everyone is the fact that this is not a Islamic or religious aspect. This is an historical perspective that we're looking at, and we're going to be focusing on the personality from that. And once we have done that and we've reached the second part, the third bit we're going to focus on the Sahaba is how Islam reached them. That moment, that choice that they've taken and the risks that they decided to take, what were they and how they made that choice, and what was that particular moment like when they became Muslim, and the decision and the consequences due to that, how did that actually have an impact on them? Which brings us to the fourth element, which is the new reality, the changes, that the changed relationship, the losses that they suffered, and the new roles that they actually took on once they became Muslim. And the emphasis on the cost and reality and the resilience that they had is something we need to understand to truly appreciate what these individuals done for us. because a lot of Islam that we have today is because of these individuals' resilience and their choices and who they were and what they did. And we need to appreciate and understand what the cost for them was. And the last thing is their impact in shaping Islam. And obviously how all this narrative connects with us. So these are the 5-part journeys that we're going to take on with every Sahaba once we start looking at them. Now, one of the things I want to clarify, and for the expectations that anyone that's watching at home, online, in your cars, in your offices, hopefully not in your offices, but that this is not a khutbah. This is not a Jumu'ah khutbah that you're doing. This is not a fiqh class for the legal rulings. And this is not a motivational lecture. And this is not a storytelling performance. It's none of it. It's something personal. And this is something that a journey that I'm on. And it's a journey that I'm sharing and with people as well. In front of me and online as well. So this is something that I personally want to do. I personally am doing. I'm doing research, I'm getting books, I'm finding information, I'm putting it together. I'm just sharing what I'm learning with everyone. So there might be things I don't know. I'll be very honest with you. If I don't know something, I'll say I don't know anything about it. And this is something we collectively would need to find out about. If there's something I know, I will share it. If there's something that you know, you need to share with me. So this is not me claiming that I have all the knowledge. I don't have all the knowledge. This is a personal journey, and it's a journey I want to collectively move with everyone. And hopefully collectively we can learn much more about it and have a better understanding of the Sahaba, and the names that we heard connect with them on an emotional level. Which brings us to the one of the aspects of it, because I wanted to do this session before we moved into the actual and speaking about the Sahaba, so you know exactly what's going to be coming. This series, if you want to, classify it as something, I would classify it as a historical biography, which explores a life in its full context. A psychological insight, basically understanding the motivations and characters of an individual. So from a psychological standpoint, with the knowledge that we have in today's time, I want to weigh these individuals in them and understand the sacrifices that they did. For example, Khadija radiallahu anha, her sacrifices are massive, meaning we can't even start to fathom what she surrendered. And inshallah, I will be speaking about this hopefully in our next session, of how the strength of her psyche was for the Prophet, and how that literally shaped the movement of Islam in his early time. And obviously examining the world in which they lived, which is very important. I feel that over time, even as students when we were growing up in school with our Islamic history class or Islamic education class, I felt that we always revered these individuals from afar. We heard about their great achievements and what they achieved when they became Muslims, but we never connected with them as a person on an emotional level. And I feel that is doing a social analysis of them as individuals, I think that would bring out something that is quite new that will help us to connect with them on an individual level. And obviously, once we do all of this, it will give us something that we can learn from humanity in itself, because society repeats itself, history repeats itself, and society forms in a very similar way. The norms have changed, but the mentalities of individuals have remained the same. The bad is still bad. That was bad 1400 years ago. It's still bad today, and it'll be bad in the future. The good that was at that time, the good is right now, and the good will remain same in the future. So I feel those things are constant world realities that are not going to change. It existed in their times, it exists in our times, and it will continue to exist in future generations to come. But those individuals, the bad in that reality, in that society that was in that time, in the Makkan period, they faced it. And the way they face it is the same way that we need to face it in today's time. And they were no different from us. They were much stronger than us, if most, because they chose Islam. We were given it. They were persecuted for it. We weren't. And they faced a society at that time which were against them. We live in a society that allows us to pray 5 times a day. We live in a society that allows us to continue to be Muslims. And we need to understand that we're blessed in that way. But the bad in society still exists, and it's from these individuals that we would be able to understand. And there's one of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that said that my Sahabas are like stars. And even if you follow any one of them, you are on the right path. So these are those Sahabas on the early ages in the first generation Muslims that exist. And from these stars, what are we going to take away from them? What is that one thing from each Sahaba that we can learn from? And that is something that we will be doing in the Sahaba Project and covering that in the Sahaba Project. Like I said before, once the session finishes and we finish with one Sahaba, we're going to have a live online seminar, which is completely free for everyone that is online. I have made a community for our online as well. Anyone that is unable to attend the live sessions, you can attend the online sessions for the seminars. And this is on nas.io. I will put the link of it in the description. And I would request you guys to join the community, because we will post updates about the Sahabas and their lives and different aspects of it, something that we would discuss. And we will have live sessions on the platform as well, so you can stay connected with that in this regard. Our social media handles are available as well, our Facebook or Instagram, so do join that as well so you can continuously know what's happening. So ending our session today, there's basically 4 major things in each seminar that we're going to reflect in. Number one thing that we're going to do is, what aspect of this Sahabi's life inspired you? So that's the first question that you need to ask when you're listening to the session, and then put questions according to that. What aspect and what specific character trait stood out for you for this particular Sahabi? And what behavior could you realistically try to implement in your life? And the fourth one is that if you met, and this one I personally love, that if you actually met this particular Sahaba, what would you ask them? So these are the 4 things I want you to keep in mind, and these are the 4 questions that we're going to base our whole session on in our seminar. The pure essence of the Sahaba Project is for us to internalize ourselves and find within ourselves and understand what impact these individuals have had, and how we can connect with them on an emotional level. And inshallah, when we start with our first Sahaba, we will be able to connect with them. We will be able to understand their journey, their struggles, and hopefully, inshallah, know them a little better. So when we meet them in the hereafter in Jannah, we can have an honest conversation with them. We can sit down with them, and we can ask them the questions that we have written down in this session, and hopefully collectively even meet them one day.